Hi, my name's Jeff Rhodes, and this is another video on Microsoft 365 and particularly Power Automate today, based on my book, Creating Business Applications with Microsoft 365. So you can get that on Amazon or other places. So here it is on Amazon. Give me some more ratings. Just have 7 so far, but appreciate those. And looks like it's doing all right up in the SharePoint guides right now. But what we're going to do today, I'm actually going to kind of revisit a video I did about 6 months ago. You can see it's one of the more popular videos. I've got 6,000 views in the last 6 months. But I got a comment this week just said it was a little tough for beginners on that. And it does. I went back and looked at it. It is a little bit involved on some of the variables and so forth. So I thought what I'd do is do almost the same example, but I'll use SharePoint instead of Excel, just in case anybody needs to do that. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the logic. So the big picture, and you'll see what it looks like in Excel there, but we assume you've got a spreadsheet or a SharePoint list, and it's got status values. You know, the example I'm going to use is, let's say they're supposed to take training, and you want to send them a reminder email if the training's not done. But we don't necessarily want to send it every single day. So what we do is we set up a Power Automate flow, and then I'm going to do it with 7 days. So every 7 days I'm going to nab you with another email saying, hey, please complete this right away. And to do that, we've got to be able to do the logic between what today's date and what we're calling the date last notified, so that we write down exactly when we sent the email last time so that we can do the math. And that's where most of the logic comes in. But it is a pretty cool functionality because it's a pretty common use case. So let's get started. I've already gone and made the SharePoint list I'm calling training content. So I changed it a little bit. I added a course title here, and just notice I've got one to the Darius Rucker here that's doesn't match the rest. So they're all training XYZ except for one, just to make sure. So when we're testing, we don't want to see Darius in there. And I'm going to skip a step when I implement this. Is I'll always email it to myself first as a test, just in case it doesn't work. But these are all various versions of my email address. So I'm just going to go skip that step and just go right to the user. And what I'm looking for is only send people who are incomplete. So Emily, Amy, and James. Those are the people I'm going to be sending it to. Oh, and it would have been Darius, but that's a different training course. So I'm looking for 3 responses, and then I'm going to write that date there, and I'm going to put some notes in there. Oh, it looks like one of them, when I tested it, it's still there. So let me edit this. Get rid of those notes in there, so you start from a clean slate there. There we go. And what we want to do is write that back. Now, one of the nice things about doing it in SharePoint is, if you watch the other video, you'll see I had to do some little bit of gyrations to write the Excel value in the correct format, like with the time zone and everything. The nice thing, since I used a date column for SharePoint, I don't need to mess with that. It can figure it out. But let's go look at those columns. It's always important to go in and check it out. And we're going to particularly know that we're going to need to go into look at how to name this course title, because it was just called title and I put the course in there. But I did first name, last name, email, all single line of text. Status is a choice, which is nice because then we can't get any extraneous spaces or anything. Then, as I mentioned, the date last notified is date and time, and notes is multiple lines of text. And I set those as plain text. All right, so let's get started. Let's jump over to Power Automate. And I'm going to come over and create, and I'll do this as a scheduled cloud flow. So I'm going to say video, send emails based on SharePoint status. And I'm going to repeat it every week on Monday morning. Like that. And I'm going to go ahead and use the new designer here that's come out. I'm not going to use Copilot in this one. There are a couple weaknesses on the new designer that I don't really like, but that's okay. Might as well use the new stuff. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to start with a bunch of variables. So this is where we start getting some of the complexity. So I'm going to spend some time making sure to explain what they do. So the first one, we're just going to want a variable of whether or not we're going to send email or not. And I'm going to set that so I don't need to initialize it there. But the other thing I like to do when I'm going along is, let me scroll up. I always like to self-document. So I'm just going to call this initialize var send email so we don't have to open it to see what the variable's doing. So that'll do the next one. Again, variable. And this time it remembers I want initialize. And this one I'm going to call it var today ticks. So let's stop and talk about what a tick. A tick is like a nanosecond. So one of the things we're going to do later, and I've got this article I found, we're going to need to know for the math how many ticks are in a day. So somebody did a nice article here. So it kind of says there's 864 billion ticks. So that's 864 with 9 zeros after it ticks in a day. But what's kind of nice about this tick concept is that, we don't have to worry about trying to, January 21st at 10 a.m. minus December 31st at 12 a.m. or whatever. We don't have to do all that. We just convert it to a number. So whenever I'm doing math on that, I like to do it. So it's going to be an integer. And then we get to use this nice functionality for functions here. Let me scroll up a little bit because it's kind of off my screen a little. Let me make it a little smaller there. There we go. So I can see it typed. So I've got a ticks function. And notice what it wants. It says the number of ticks. And it says, and we needs a timestamp. Actually, I'll make it one thing smaller. Yeah, there we go. So it tells you we need a timestamp. And since it's today, we have a concept called UTC now. And notice it has its own parentheses like that. So we add that in there. So that's going to be our value. And again, I want to copy that. So as you might imagine, we're going to use that in when we compare to the date last notified to do the math so that we can do it. So we're going to need a couple more variables. And whoops, spelled it wrong. There we go. And this one I'm going to call var ticks last notified. And we're going to set that one later, so we don't need to give it a value now. There we go. And I guess I need 5 variables here, looking at my example. And this one is var last notification date. And I just want that so I can store it. Sometimes it's hard to get to the original column of SharePoint that we're going to get to. So we'll put that in there. Seems a little odd there. Sometimes it doesn't want to give you the insert new action. There we go. And we're going to do another one, var, if I could type, days between ticks. And that's the one that we're going to put that 864 billion in there. So that's going to be an integer as well. But we don't need to initialize it yet. Notice how nice our thing looks there. So we have the shows what each of our variables is. So so far so good. And now I'm going to go to SharePoint. We can do a little bit cooler thing than we did with Excel last time. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, looks like it's alphabetical, I want to get items. So I'm going to pick my SharePoint site, pick my list name, alphabetical, and then what's a bit nicer here, what we did in Excel is we just grabbed the entire table and then we looped through the rows. But because of that, we had to check for the incomplete status. And if we used that course title, we'd have to check the course title as well. But we have an advanced parameters here that we call filter query. And it's called an OData query. And so we just have to be a little careful here because we need to use like the original name of the column. So I'm going to go back to these list settings and I'm going to click this course title. Let me see if I can, yeah. Oops, I was trying to zoom in there. I guess I have my zoom turned on. But see this right here where it says field equals title. So even though I renamed it to course title, it still kept that original name. So if you've renamed it, need to go back to the original one. Now I also am going to use status, but I'm pretty sure I didn't rename that, but we can check it just to be sure and see where it says field equals status there. So that's good. So let's go over here, and then you need to look up the exact syntax, but it's basically like EQ for equals is what we're going to use today, but like LT for less than and so forth. So I'm going to paste in there title equals training XYZ. So that's how I can limit it to just the course I'm interested in. And status equals incomplete. Like that. Again, we can go back here and check just to double check that that's the right value. So it's training XYZ and incomplete. Okay, not incompleted or whatever. So that's good. And what that's going to do is get us all the items that match. So we're expecting to get 3 items, as you might remember me say before. Whoops, oh, that was, didn't actually want to zoom in there, but all right, let's see. There we go. And now what I want to do is I want to control and I want to apply to each, but I like to kind of say a little more what I'm doing here. So I'll just say loop through items. And you want to click this to get the choices, and all we really have is the body there that we are doing. I'm not quite sure how to zoom back out of this thing, so it was kind of interesting. Let me do a control minus. So I'll go down a little bit, but somehow I double clicked in here and zoomed it in, but we'll see how it goes. So inside this loop, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and do a variable again, but I want to set my variable. So it's not showing up there, so I'll say set variable, and it's going to be var last notification date. And then what I want to do is I want to set it. Notice that doesn't show right there. It doesn't show his last name. So I need the date last notified. So I'm going to read what that is, and it makes it easier putting it in the variable. And this one I can't copy and paste it much, so I'll just put it. I'm going to set var last notification date like that. There we go. And now what I need to do is I need different logic if it's true or false. So I'm going to say condition, and I'm going to use that variable, which works better. So I'm going to say if var last notification is equal to blank. So I don't need to put a value in there, which is nice. But again, I'll change this condition. I'll say check if last notification date is blank. There we go. And then it already puts it over here if it's true or false. If it's true, then all I need to do is set my variable. I can say set var send email to true. And since I said it was Boolean, that's how I gave you the true and the false. So again, to be a broken record here, but var send email to true. So you might imagine if it's not, well, I've got more that I got to do here. Because if it's not blank, then it has a value. Now I got to do some math, and that's where we got a little bit of logic. So we'll come spend a little bit more time on the false side, but we're going to have to do a couple variables first. So this is where we use that ticks last notified. And this is where it's nice for us that it works with the SharePoint date format, so I don't have to do anything too crazy here. But I'm going to use the function, because remember I need that ticks. So I'll do the ticks, and then notice how you do this. You come over the dynamic content so I can see my columns, but I have to again say see more so I get the right one. And so I'm going to go, it does all that kind of apply to each and everything, but I get the ticks last notified. So it's going to tell me what the number was for that date, like that. So that's kind of cool. Again, I need to var set what it's doing. Set var ticks last notified. And then now that I've set that, I can also set my days between ticks. So, and this is where I need to do the math. So this is probably the most complicated one. So we'll do it nice and slowly. So what we want to do is start from the middle. So we've got a subtract function. And they call that the minuend and the subtrahend, if anybody can remember that from high school or college or whatever. But just it's the bigger number minus the smaller number. Okay, so the bigger number, we got to go back to our dynamic content. That's today. So that's, remember that today ticks that we did, comma, and then the smaller number, which is the ticks from the last notified date. So that gives us all that. But then we need to divide. So we need div, whoops. And know it's got the dividend, and then we got to tell it what we're dividing it by. So that's that 864, and then 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's your number 0. So we'll see if we have that right. Looks like it is, so that's good. Oh, I don't want to forget that part. We're going to say set var days between ticks. There we go. Now we're ready to do some more math or some more logic. So we're going to do a condition, and we're going to say, okay, we're going to check the days between ticks and see if it's greater or equal to 7. Going to type in 7. And we're going to, again, check if 7 or more days since notified. And again, it gave us the true and false. And all we're going to do is set this var send email there. Because if it's more than 7 days, we set it to 2. And I'll just say number 2, because I already set it to true in another one. So it wants it to be unique. So In this one, we could have, we'll say, set it to false. Didn't say anything about being. I would kind of like to zoom this thing out. So let me go ahead and save this so far. See if I come out and come back in, if it gets zoomed out. I'm not quite, like I said, I kind of double clicked it in there. I'm not totally sure how I got it out of there. Got it all zoomed in. So we'll come in here. It says we're ready to go, but we'll come in here and edit it. There we go. Now it's a little smaller. I can turn off my Copilot. Then we can kind of see it going on. So I'll squeeze this down, if you will. So now I've gone in here. Yeah. And so what I need to do now is do another condition. So I do still need to be within the loop because I'm still working with the item that we're on. But I need another condition now where I would say, okay, I'm going to check that variable, that var send email, if it's equal to true. And I'll put that in. There we go. And what do I want to do now? Well, now I'm really ready to do what I started out with. I want to go ahead and send an email. So I type in Outlook here and see if it'll give me more. I want to send an email v2. There we go. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where I could, if I'm testing, you want to send it to yourself first and double check all your logic. But since these are all my own emails, I'll just jump right to that one. It's low risk. So I'm going to say send it to the email. And then my subject is going to be something about the course. So I'm going to say training is incomplete for course. And then I'll put quotes, like single quotes in there. And I'll grab the course title like that. And then I went to the trouble to get the first name. So I'll say, dear first name, your status, I'll put another blank line in, for course, and I'll do that same single quotes. And I could put in the status here, but I know I'm checking for incomplete. So I'll just type it, please finish this training as soon as possible. Thanks, management. Probably could get a little better thing than that, but that's okay. Notice, by the way, I'm not going to do it here, but often you'll want to send as a different, if you got like an org box or whatever, send it from there so it's not coming from an individual, and you may blind copy, do some other stuff. But the other thing, I might as well just send this as high importance since I'm going to the trouble. So that's good. And now we just have one more thing that we need to do. Again, only if we're doing is we want to go back to SharePoint, we need to write that, write the date in there so that we can check it and, wait a week until we run it again or whatever, the 7 days. So what we want to do, these are in alphabetical order. So I want to go all the way to the bottom and say update item. So again, you pick your site, pick your list. And then you got to tell it which item you're updating. So use that ID that we got in the get items. And then it wants us to do the status value because it's the choice column. But what we really want to do is the dates and the notes like that. So I'm actually not going to update the status column at all. But what we want to do, the date notified, this is where we don't have to do any special formatting, which is nice. So we can just update that with that UTC now, like we mentioned before. And then the notes, we just can put more friendly versions. So you can say notification, email, if I could spell it, sent on. What we can do, there's a format date time because we don't need all the time really. So we'll just say UTC now, and we'll put a date format in there. So I'll say month, day, year, like that. We got the parentheses, and we'll put a period on the end of that. And that should be it. So let's test it. So let's save it. Wait for it to save. Now we can test it. Do it manually. We don't have any parameters. So we'll run the flow. Go to the flow runs page. Test succeeded. So that's good. Let's look at SharePoint first. So I'll reload what we're expecting to see. Nothing yet. I don't see it. There we go. So we expect 3 of those to be done. 1, 2, 3. Put the dates on there. And then we have the short version, notification email sent on 4:30. Let me fire up my emails. Refresh because I see one of them already, but the other 2 are a little slower. There, they're all there. So let me bring them over. Oops, didn't quite fit in the screen there. So that was the first one. That was to my 365. And note it says Dear Amy. And then this one is to my J Rhodes account. Dear James, that's James McMurtry. You might notice those are all music people. And then Dear Emily, and that's to that same account as well. All right, so we got almost done, but we got to do some testing now because we haven't really tested our flow there. So let's click on it just so we can also see what we did this time and what we're expecting for the next one. So notice it's 3, which we expected. And if we go to var send email, it said check if var send email is true. And then it went and we got these green check boxes by the email and the update item. So since we just did it, then, and I guess I can resubmit it here. I usually like to do it from test, so I'll probably just do it from there. So let me edit and test it again, and we'll send it again. And what should happen is I shouldn't get any emails. Really nothing should happen because they all been redone. You know, in other words, hasn't been a week yet. So we're going to run the flow. Should be pretty quick for it. Come on. There we go, it succeeded. So let's go in here, and what should happen now, yeah, just what we expect. So it has these X's here, so because the check if var send email was true, was false, was not true. So let's just go through each one. Didn't send it. Didn't send it. All right, so let's go now and change. Let's just change 2 of them. So I'll go into edit mode. We'll change Emily. So we can get like time zone difference. So I don't want to go exactly a week. Let's make this 8 days. So we'll do the 12th. And we'll take Amy and just change it to the previous month. So it's a whole month. There we go. And so what we expect now is to get 2 of them. So we'll go again and run it again. And if I go back here, I can just test it again here. Oops. Oh, I guess I got to edit it. Thought I was in there. Come on. There we go. Run it again. Oh, and I just got an email, first one in, so that's a good sign. Let's go look at it in the designer. So first one was, see, Dear Emily. That one sent. Second one sent as well, Dear Amy. And the third one should not send, and it didn't. Yep, went in. So let me show you the emails. There we go. So there's the Amy one. There's the Emily one. So let's finish it off. Go back to our thing. Notice these should change as soon as I refresh. Didn't change yet. Let's reload it again. There we go. So you can see 1238 was the original one for James McMurtry, so we didn't send that again, but we resent. We wrote 12:42 p.m. for these and updated the notes. So, all right, well, just over half an hour. Hope that was helpful, and bring those comments back, and we will see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed to this channel. See you next time. Thanks.